Thank you for that marvelous film. Let me give you this. James, you've done several films in India, and this was towards the end of the films you were making in India, isn't it?
Well, it was my last film in India, yeah.
The last film you made in India.
Ismail made another one, and Madhur was in that,
Yes.
Cotton Mary.
Yeah, but that was not. That was much later. Yeah. Actually, yesterday we saw Shakespeare Wala, in which Madhur was Shashi's love interest, and today she was his mother. So that's quite a change from one day to another. I wanted to ask you, Ruth wrote the book and the screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
She must have visualized the characters. Did she have a role in casting, or was that entirely you?
No, she didn't. She tended to stay out of that. But Madhur said she wanted to play Shashi's mother, and I thought, oh, you want to tell the story? Okay.
Tell this part. So Jim says to me, I don't think you should play this part because, you played Shashi's love interest in Shakespeare Wala, and it would be very ungallant of me to have you play his mother. And I said, it doesn't matter, I want to play it, but I just want to tell that story.
So okay, I mean, I it's all right then if you were ready to do it. And I thought it would be ungallant to cast.
Why did you want to play that particular role, Madhur?
For an actor, a good role is a good role. I mean, we play murderers.
Yes.
I'm just about to do something in which I say a lot of dirty words. It's all the same. You're an actor, and you just have to take it because you want to do it.
Okay.
Good parts are not easy to come by.
Jim, can you tell us a little bit about how the relationship started with you, Ismail, and Ruth, and that became the team that made all these Indian films first and then came to this?
But that's such an old story. Shouldn't we talk about Heat and Dust?
Oh, well, I was leading up to it, but if it leads up to it, it's...
Someone in Hollywood gave Ismail a copy of The Householder. Well, he had an idea when he was still in Hollywood, when he was very young and just out of NYU, and he wanted to make a film, some kind of an Indian film with a spiritual theme, and it was vaguely about there would be a sort of some mysticism in it and all of this, of which actually Ismail had very little real interest when it comes right down to it. But he wanted to do this, and someone said, no, don't do that kind of thing. Take this. And she gave him, it was a Hollywood writer who worked for one of the studios, I think for MGM, and I can't remember her name, unfortunately. But anyway, she gave him the novel of Heat and Dust. He said, make this into a movie. This would suit you perfectly, because he wanted to make English language pictures in India for the Western audience. That was his goal. So that exactly fit his goal, and so he then wanted to get in touch with Ruth to see if he could acquire the rights and so forth, and he did. And so I think he called her up, and she answered the phone, and he asked for Mrs. Jamvala, and she didn't want to talk to a stranger, so she said that she was his mother-in-law, Ruth's mother-in-law. And but somehow he got through to her and said that we wanted to come see her about doing The Householder as a film, and her husband said, well, so okay, we went to Delhi and met with Ruth and Job, and afterwards the husband said, Job said, oh, these are just fly-by-night people. They're not going to do any things they say they're going to do. And but Ruth listened to that, and we got together then. We got together then, and Ismail said to her, "Well, you of course must write the screenplay," and she said, "Well, I've never written a screenplay," And he said, well, I've never produced a movie either, and Jim has never directed one. So we all agreed, why not? We would try, and that's how we started.
All your
And
films.
that in time did lead to Heat and Dust, but there was a big gap between our early Indian films and Heat and Dust.
All your films are, I think, very opulent, and they always talk about aristocracy or the upper middle class, or all very beautiful.
And I can't help that.
No, I just wondered whether that was something that you just
Well, Heat and
concentrate
Dust is
on.
not about that, is it?
Well,
I mean, yes,
even
there is
it's
a decadent, a sort of corrupt Indian ruler in it, a very important and dashingly corrupt ruler played by Shashi Kapoor. But then the family that Julie Christie goes to stay with is anything but that, right?
I know, but most of the film and the ideas behind,
No,
you
this
see
isn't
this as a
true.
contrast.
Half of it is set in 1923, in the
Yeah.
court mostly in the civil lines, in a sort of made up, in a small Indian town with a British, what do they call it, resident? No,
Mhm,
not a resident.
mhm.
What was it called, a resident?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And the other half of the film is set in modern times and in a very ordinary middle-class family that Julie Christie, who's gone to India to do research on her family background, that she decides to stay with, and they put her up. But it's not, it is, it's really 50-50.
Okay.
No, it is. And yeah, some of our films are about the aristocracy, but they're fewer than you think. But I wouldn't say they're fewer. I mean, middle class people, yes, we do. Can we get into it?
Where did you shoot all the locations? Where were they?
Well, Heat and Dust was the entire film was shot in Hyderabad, and then the bit at the end in Kashmir.
In Kashmir.
Yeah, in Gulmarg.
Okay. Madhu, did you go on location all the time, or you just went for your specific?
I was only in the Hyderabad part of it, so that's where I stayed. I never met Julie Christie. I never met that side of the story, those people. But I have to say that as I was watching the film, I saw just part of it today, it was like you're dying and then you begin to see everyone that's been in your life. And all the actors were like coming across me from Shakespeare Wala. There was, what was his name, Priyag?
But he hasn't died.
No, but it's just, I felt like I'm done. And this vision of people that I've known through various films, Barry, he was just, they were all going past in this film, and I hadn't realized that they were all in this film because they were not in my part of the film.
What we do need to talk about today is a tribute to Shashi Kapoor, because yesterday's film and today's are both tributes to him. What was your relationship with Shashi, James?
Well, he was my first leading man in a feature film, or in any film really. He was the first leading man in The Householder, and then again in Shakespeare Wala, and then again in Bombay Talkie. When I arrived in India and Ismail began to set up The Householder, I had no idea who should play what. I mean, I didn't know anything about who were the good Indian actors, but Ismail certainly knew, and quite soon he put together the cast of The Householder, which was Durga Kote, Leela Naidu, and Shashi. And Shashi was just then becoming popular, a young star. He hadn't done very much yet, but of course he was one of the three Kapoor brothers, Raj, Shami, and Shashi, and he was already a famous, young actor, out having done a great deal. He was very, very much known, and he had an English wife and English in-laws, and I didn't realize that when I met them all that they would be the main characters and main actors in my next film, but I soon came to know them. And I got on terribly well with Shashi. I mean, he was an extraordinary gentleman and very willing to put up with all the hard work and lack of payment and everything else that a first feature generally causes you to exist through or get past and on with the work. He was very, very good.
Madhur, you've acted with him in a few
Yeah,
movies.
I'd
Well,
like to
both of
talk
them
about
anyway,
the
yes.
lack of payment a little bit here.
Okay, you can
That's
tell us that
something
and
about
also
Shashi.
about Shashi.
So there was a period when there was no money, and in Heat and Duck. So money had run out. We were all staying in this hotel, and so we stopped getting our daily allowance. That was the first thing that went, and I'm sure terrible things were happening elsewhere where money was concerned. And we got angrier and angrier with Ismail for not paying us. And of course, in the end, Shashi took care of things. He just quietly, gentlemanlike took care of the money end of it. But then Ismail comes back in and said, "Come on, we are all going to celebrate." And so we were so annoyed and angry with him. We said, okay, what are we going to celebrate with now? He says, "I'm going to take you to this palace." And this palace is Falaknuma Palace, which is then closed. Nobody could go in and see it. But Ismail said, "I'm going to have it opened." And he had the palace opened, and we all walked in, and we saw it, all in tatters at that time, but gorgeous. And it was such an experience that we all forgave Ismail, which is what happened with Ismail each time. We got so angry with him, then he did something fabulous, and we forgave him, and life went on.
So that was a non-payment. What about Shashi?
Oh, so I just wanted to say that Shashi was the gentleman that he always has been, or always was, and he took care of it. And that was somehow behind Ismail, Jim, and Ruth. There was always Shashi being the gentleman and taking care of things that would suddenly go out of kilter. Shashi would be there to take care of it. And he was just a wonderfully kind human being in an age where that was just sort of not happening much anymore. There were very few people like him. I don't think it's easy to be him because he just had that natural innocence, natural sense of kindness, and natural good humor, which most people don't have.
I've just been told that we have to wrap this, unfortunately. I know we haven't even got halfway through anything. So, did you want to say something before I open it up?
Lots.
Yes, please do. Please do. Please.
No. I mean, if they have another film coming in, what can we do? But,
And we
Yes.
can talk outside. There's plenty of room there. for
Yes,
the dance.
let's just
Yes,
get one.
Let's
Yeah.
continue.
is that it?
Well, it's unfortunate, but can we just take one question
Yes,
from
please
the
do,
audience
please.
if there is there a question from the audience? Yes.
Is there any hope that you would consider making a film with an Indian theme in the future?
That's for you, Jim.
It's a strange thing that you've asked that now. I'm about to make a film based on a short story of Ruth Javalla's called The Judge's Will that was set in Delhi had all the characters in it were Indian. That was published by the New Yorker, and it came out about 2 weeks after she died in 2013. Now that story was optioned by Alexander Payne and Fox Searchlight. And recently, they came to me and said, would I like to write the screenplay for that? I said, sure. But they want to set the story in Chicago, and the characters would be American. And I said, fine. And that's the sort of thing, if Ruth were around, I know she'd say, do it. Because it's quite a universal sort of story. It could be set in Europe or here or India, all kinds of places. So I'm doing a Ruth Jalvala story, set in Delhi, transferred to Chicago, is now going to have American actors playing the parts.
Well,
I don't know whether that counts. But that's
Well, it does, because an actor, director, and a screenwriter.
Yeah, well,
You've
I'm
done
not
that
direct-
before
it's
too.
Alexander Payne's going to direct it.
Well,
Yeah,
you're writing it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be my screenplay.
And
Thank you.
congratulations on your Oscar,
Oh,
which
thank
you,
you. Oh,
and
thank
for
you.
your screenplay for that.
Thank you.
I am so sorry that we have to end. We've got another film coming. I'm really sorry.
But Arun, we can go to the left. There's a big sofa. They can sit down. They can all talk. There's
Yes.
plenty of
Well,
room
if
there.
anyone would like to talk to them, please talk to them outside.